What is up, Team Misfit Coaches? Sheriff here with a couple of tips and tricks to help your athletes do better on 23.2 A and B. Let's start first and foremost with the burpee pull-up. Number one thing I want you to focus on when you're talking to your athletes is getting their hands in the right placement. One thing we don't want to see athletes doing while they're doing the burpee pull-up is fidgeting around with where their hands are going, where the pull-up bar is over their head. We want to make this as repeatable as possible. So one easy tip for this, ask your athletes to get their hands good and chalky, mark their hands on the floor where they're going to lay down for their burpees for every single burpee pull-up. Or if you prefer something a little bit cleaner, you can put some tape on the floor. But the idea here is that on every burpee pull-up, you tell your athletes, put your hands in the exact same spot. Which brings me up to tip number 2 for the burpee pull-up, is cadence. If you try to sprint the burpees in the beginning of this workout, you are in for a really rough workout here. So it's really critical that when you talk to your athletes, the cadence is a key feature. If you go back and watch the elite athletes do this workout, you'll notice they step down and step up. That's to keep their heart rate in control so they can stay moving the entire time. This workout is all about staying moving from start to finish for all 15 minutes, and the cadence on the burpees are going to allow your athletes to do that. Moving on to shuttle runs. Again, similar topic, pace, pace, pace. You do not want to outrun your ability to do burpee pull-ups. So if you scream through those shuttles and then you have to put hands on your knees, you're in trouble. So coaches, before the workout, it's a really good idea. Have your athletes time out 10 shuttle runs just once as they're warming up to get an idea of how long that should take, and then ask them honestly, how do you feel afterwards? If you feel like you can stay moving, awesome. If you feel gassed, you should probably tempo it back a bit so you can stay moving on the burpee pull-ups. Second, we got to do the 3 points of contact, which means you're going to be bending over every time you change direction. And if your athletes aren't prepped to hinge at the waist, they're going to be complaining about sore lower backs about halfway through the workout. So coaches, good idea, some banded good mornings, some posterior hip distraction, and anything to prep being able to bend over and touch the floor, because again, you got to do it a lot in this workout. And then last but not least, seems like a really simple thing, run the straight line. I see this happen all the time with athletes. Our affiliate, they get going in shuttle runs, they get a little lost in the weeds, and next thing you know, they're weaving a little figure 8 back and forth, the really flat infinity sign here, and that really just adds extra distance to each shuttle run, which makes it a lot harder to get the work done, because again, you're adding additional distance per shuttle. So run nice and straight. Most CrossFit affiliates have these horse stall mats in them. You probably pick a landmark on the floor and just kind of keep that on your side the entire time to make sure they're running straight back and forth. And again, if you really need to, you could tape a straight line across the lanes to help them stay nice and straight back and forth with the shuttle runs. Then, once you get through the first 15 minutes of fun, you're moving on to the weightlifting. Positions matter, and the thruster is like the lie detector test for efficiency in movements. If you are not in the best possible front squat when you catch that clean, and as you stand up from that, you're going to have suboptimal positioning, which means they're now relying on this big arch bench press shape, which effectively leads to less weight being lifted. So number one thing here is tell your athletes to really dial in their front squat before starting. That means a nice wide front rack, a solid base, knees out, torso vertical, so you can really transfer energy from the hips up into the bar overhead. And then last but not least, this is something that's often neglected because the bar is heavy, and when it's heavy, it's hard to move it fast. But tell your athletes to move fast in the middle. So as soon as you hit the bottom of your squat and you begin to redirect and stand up, it's all about speed, 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 because you do not want your arms that just did 10 trillion burpee pull-ups to be relying on moving that barbell over your head. You want your hips to move the bar. So again, focusing on standing with speed is how you transfer energy from your hips into your shoulders and get your athletes moving that barbell a little smoother. So again, to recap, first in the burpee pull-ups, we want to make sure we're talking about hand placement and cadence. Move on to the shuttle runs. Be smart with your pace. Make sure you're ready to bend over at the waist a bunch of times and run in a straight line. And then last but not least, positions and speed in the thruster is how your athletes are going to move the most amount of weight. There you have it. There's a few tips for 23.2 A and B. If you like this video, hit that follow button. We'll see you in the next one.